My name is Matt. I'm the training manager here at Beacon Software. For existing customers that have seen these before, welcome back. For new customers, welcome to the stream. Today, basically, we're going to be going over our accounting side of our software. So that includes posting calls. We'll show a little bit about Motor Club billing. We're going to show our new feature about how to automatically send invoices and or statements through the software. We're also going to cover credit memos, how to enter payments, and a little bit about commission and also split commissions. You should have to your right-hand side, I believe, there should be a chat box. So if you do have any questions throughout the training, I can see those as they come in. Just go ahead and type them into the chat box and we'll try to answer them. I'm also going to have an open discussion at the end. So if you guys have questions that you want to wait till the end, we can do that as well. So we'll get started here. We'll kind of jump right in. So I'm already logged into the software here. All right, so we're going to jump right over to the accounting section here. All right, so what this is going to do, this is going to load 30 days worth of numbers for us. So we have 21 calls, at least in the last 30 days, that haven't been checked over. We have 17 open invoices in the last 30 days that we're still waiting to receive payment on. And then we have 13 payments that were made within the last 30 days. Now these extra little red boxes here, underbilled and overdue. Underbilled is really something you really don't want to see. That means you have a call that's older than 30 days that you haven't checked over or posted to your accounts receivables yet. So if I go ahead and click on that, this will load, and this is going to show me all the calls that I have that haven't been checked over. And then we have a little search over here. I can either do show more. This will always show 100 at a time. If I do show more, it's going to show the next 100. If I do show max, though, this is going to bring in the next 1,000, if not all of them. So in our test database, we have 797 calls that haven't been checked over yet, which is pretty bad. If we don't check over or post these calls, they're not going to be part of our accounts receivables, which means it never gets to commission, it never gets to the payment part, it never gets to our sales reports. So posting or verifying your calls is a very important step in the software. So this is just more of a warning, like just, hey, take a look at your calls. You may have calls that are older or missed for whatever reason that we need to check over. If I click the actual blue part of it, this is just going to show me the 21 calls that still need to be checked over. So you have an option if you want to view it this way. Or if I click create invoices here, this will actually take me into the posting screen. Now, when we come into this screen the first time, it will default to today's date. So I don't have any calls that were finished out today. So I need to change my filter. So I can filter by division, I can filter by the date, the specific driver, bill to account, job number, anything like that. I'm going to pick, let's pick this month. I could also do a date range. It's kind of buried at the bottom there. But let's go ahead and pick this month and do a search. Right. So for this month, I have 5 jobs that haven't been checked over. What we're looking for is accuracy of these calls. So this call that we ran for Bob's Cadillac, if this needed a PO, I should see it here. If we're using the ticket or invoice number, I should see it here. We can see that the job number matches my invoice number. That may or may not be the case for your database. You could be using the ticket number as your invoice number. We can see the count. We have 2 calls, or excuse me, 2 services on here. The total price of the call. And then if I wanted to see what services were on it, I can drop this down and see that I have a tow and a mileage on here. All right. Now these other buttons that I have here, this is a merging button. This would merge invoices together. So there may be a case where you have maybe a -2 or a -3 invoice because you've added services after the call's been posted. You may need to merge them together. So I can change this. Let's say it was a -2. I can merge this into a -1 and then push everything basically back together onto one invoice. The pencil icon will take us into the call. So if we need to update anything from here, we can go ahead and fill it out or change anything we need to at the bottom possibly, and then resave it. All changes will update in real time. You don't have to refresh this screen anymore. This screen also will bring in all of your calls all at once, whereas if you were familiar with our old system, it only brought in so many calls at a time. This brings in everything, right? Now on the service line item, so the tow and the mileage, we have a move to another invoice button or a split button. What this button is going to do is it's going to possibly split this service off onto a different invoice. You have the same call, but maybe your tow is being paid by party 1, your mileage is being paid for by party 2. So you say, okay, this mileage, it's the same call, but I need this on its own page. I can split now. I have my tow and my mileage on 2 different invoices, same call. Morning, Bill. So the other option is, yes, I can go into the call if I want to and edit the services, but I can also edit the service right from here, and I can edit it on the fly. So if I needed to change this mileage, we can see that somebody put the quantity in instead of possibly using the calculator. So if I say, okay, I want to fix this, let me go ahead and use the calculator. Okay, there's no addresses on this call, but let's just say it's supposed to be 5. I can manually put it in. It now shows 5 miles on here, and then my unit price changed based on free miles or whatever I have set up on here. So I could have as easily went back into the call and done that, but if I wanted to, I can fix things here. I could also delete the service. So if I don't need this service for whatever reason, or it was a mistake, I can delete it without having to go into the call and just fix it like that. Now, when you come in here, you might also see potential warnings. So this call 8568, we have a potential warning. It's just saying that there are potential invalid job services. Please review. When you see this, you want to look over here. All right, one of these 2 buttons are going to be highlighted. If the pencil is highlighted, that means you're missing something that you said was required for billing. Maybe a PO, maybe a VIN number. It's just something that you have in the settings that basically said, I need this for billing, and if it's missing, it's going to flag it here saying, hey, take a look at this call. You may need to fix it before you bill, in this case, BG Auto. If your service button is highlighted, we can drop it down. That means there's a potential problem with your services. All right, so in our case, we have mileage and en route both at 0, which is the quantity is 0, which is uncommon. The price also would flag it as there's a potential problem because nobody used the calculator within the program to calculate the miles. So if it's a quantity of 0, or if it's a mileage service that the calculator was not used on, you will get a potential warning that there is a problem. If you have any other services like a tow, or just any other primary service for that matter, that's $0, we're also going to flag it as a potential problem. Typically those services aren't 0, so we want you to take a look at it just to make sure that you either have to fix the call. Now if this is correct, we say, no, actually we did this, this is correct, we had to add it for the call, we weren't going to charge them anything for it. We can click that button and override it, and then we're just going to push it through the way that it is. So you have either option, either overriding it, or if I said, okay, you know what, I have to go back into this call and fix it. Oh, there's no addresses on here. Let's just say it was 10, and we'll say this was 15, and save it. All right, so now my warning went away because I used the calculator, which shows right here that the mileage calculator was used within the program. Now you'll still see the price over here at 0. Well, you would say, okay, wait, you just said that if it's 0, it's going to flag it as a warning. Well, it will if it's a primary service. If it's a mileage service, we highlight this red just so it catches your eye. But then you could look over here and say, oh, okay, you know what? They get 20 free miles and this is 15. That I expect that to be 0. So it's more to catch your eye on a mileage service if the mileage calculator was used. If it's any other service, it would flag it as a potential warning. The only other time you're going to see a warning on these is if you have a VIN number. If it's 6 and under, we don't bother validating, it just skips. If it's 7 or more, it will validate it. So if it's a bad VIN, we're going to flag it here as well as a potential problem. So you might just have to go into the call and either look at it just to double check that, if it was a driver or a dispatcher that was supposed to put that in, or maybe it fed into the system and it was bad, you either have the chance to fix it or just override it and then push these calls through as they sit. So let's just assume these are all correct. I can either select the ones that I want to push through, or I could select this button here and it just selects all the calls at once. Right? So we're going to go ahead and save this. Oh, one other thing to mention on this. When you load your calls in, it will not show impounded vehicles. If you need to post your impounded calls, we need to select this box here in our filter, and it will bring those over here. So we can see that we have 3 impounds here, just indicated with a different color. These ones have warnings. There might be problems maybe with storage. Yeah, and the mileage. So if you need to post these for commission purposes, you may need to set that filter to include them on this screen as well. The last thing, actually I forgot to mention too, this little button right up here, this little toggle find and results button, depending on how many calls you're looking at, instead of scrolling up and down, you may need to find a specific invoice or just anything on this page. It could be a dollar amount, it could be a PO, whatever it is. This little search will let you search within your filter results. So if I was trying to find 8558, okay, that's going to go ahead and highlight it for me. All right. If there's more than one result, so if I just typed in 85, for example, it shows that I have 7 rows that match what I typed in here. So I can just use the forwards and backwards arrows to start highlighting the next call. All right. Typically on the posting page or the create invoices page, you probably won't use that too often. You'll probably use that more in the enter payment, which we'll look at here in a minute. But this little box you're going to see in pretty much all the accounting screens, and it's basically a search within your filter results. The reason you don't want to reset your filter all over again, let's just say I'm like, okay, well I needed to only do it for, let's just select all these real quick. Let's say I was only looking for 444 auto, for example. Well, I just lost all the work that I did before. So if I made any changes or did anything else, I just lost it because I reset my filter. So this lets you search without resetting your filter or losing the work that you've already done. So just be aware that anytime you reset a filter, you're going to lose any previous work that you had before. All right. So let's take that filter off. Let's go and post all these and hit save. All right. So once you do that, we get a green check mark just letting us know that they're all posted and verified, and then if I set my filter again, they should all be gone. Now, just because you pushed it over to accounts receivables, that doesn't mean that you can't change the call. Maybe you missed something or something came up afterwards and you're like, oh, wait a second, I forgot to add that, or that unit price was incorrect, I actually need to change that or add a discount. You could always go back to that call and edit it, even though it's posted. If you add another service to the call after it's been posted, it will appear in here again as a -2, -3, -4 invoice, depending on how many times you've done it. And that's fine. You just need to post it if it's a new service. If you just change the existing one, you don't need to post it because that line item's already been posted. If you get confused on that or you have questions when it comes up or questions on how to merge it, just give us a call. We can walk you through that. It's usually the first or second time, because typically you're not doing it all the time. We can walk you through it and help you out. So that's what, whether myself or that's why we have support. So this is the posting screen and verifying the calls. All right. So that's the first step. So again, if this step is not done, nothing else in accounting will work correctly. So this has to be done before anything else can be done. So we recommend, if you can, to try to do this daily or at least weekly, so your calls aren't too backed up. But as long as it's getting done at some point, you'd be fine. Now, we just posted some of those calls and you'll say, wait a second, you just got rid of some of these calls. Why haven't these numbers updated? Well, these numbers will update the first time you log in. So if I would log out and log right back in, these would all update, right? If you want to see them move in real time, we did add a refresh button up here. So if we click that, we'll see that this dropped. Our balance has moved over here. I didn't take any payments, so that should have stayed the same. But we can see numbers move in real time with the refresh button. But otherwise, like I said, stuff is getting processed, so you're just not going to see it unless you refresh it or log out, log back in. All right. So once the calls are posted, if we're doing any motor club work here, we can submit those to the motor clubs once that's set up. So depending on the motor clubs, we'll just minimize some of these. So these are all these test accounts that we have in here. Let's just assume these Bob's Cadillac, let's just assume this is a real motor club. I can come on here and say, okay, these are all the ones that I want to bill. I select those and I hit send invoices. Those are going to push off to all the different motor clubs, depending on which ones you're working with. and bill them for you. So it's very similar to you going to the website and typing all the information in yourself. The system just does it at a much faster rate. So it's anywhere from 20 to as high as 150 invoices per minute that it will process. Now, if you're on this page and you see a box with the exclamation point with a triangle in it, this means that something went wrong, something didn't match. Possibly your username and password has expired. The services you had on the call don't match what the motor club has. Maybe you didn't add enough services, or you have too many services that the motor club's not expecting. This is what we call an edit. Right? So you could open that up, and then it will tell you what the error is typically, depending on the motor club. And then usually you can fix the call and then try to resubmit it. Or if you'd rather submit it manually through the website, you could go to the website, submit it, and then you would click this little eyeball right here and hide it. And you're going to hide it off the billing screen. That doesn't mean you're hiding it off your system. It doesn't mean you received payment. It just means you've already taken care of it for billing, so I don't need to see it on this screen anymore. So if you're looking at calls on the screen, we can assume that they haven't been billed. All right. Now, if you have a circle with an exclamation point on it, that means something on the back end basically blew up. That's an error typically on our side, or just it doesn't have something to match it up to. If you're getting these errors, or you ever see these errors, give us a call so we can look into it. Usually something doesn't match, or it might be something on the server that we have to reset. But if you see this is nothing wrong that you did. It's something either on our side or a potential setup issue. Just give us a call so we can fix that. These boxes, though, these are usually ones that you can fix. But if you're, again, kind of confused or you haven't done this too much, going through all the different errors, let us know. We can do a training on that. We can walk you through exactly how to fix each and every error that you may come across, or errors that are on your page. We can walk you through exactly how to fix those. All right. Again, with this, though, if you wanted to, you can set a filter. Otherwise, it just loads everything that's unbilled. And again, I have that little search within my search results button. So if I am trying to find a specific PO possibly, or a specific invoice in here, I can do that as well. All right. The other questions that we get in this part is, okay, so I've billed something now. How do I see that it's been billed? Well, you can set your filter here. Typically, it doesn't include submitted, and it doesn't include hidden invoices. So if I click that include submitted, I may or may not get results here because of the, here we go. So these three test ones have gone through for billing, so I get a green check mark on them. If I do include hidden, these are going to show all the invoices that were hidden in the invoice. So you might have said, okay, wait a second, I hid that by mistake. I actually need to bring that back. Well, you can just click that button again, and it will unhide that invoice. All right. The only other thing you may do from this page is you may need to go back into the invoice. So maybe you do have an error message on one of these, and you actually need to fix it. Maybe you forgot to, run mileage. Maybe something did get through on the posting or create invoices screen. This is typically going to catch it. So this little pencil icon, all this is going to do, this will take you back into the same call that you're used to looking at, and then you can fix whatever you need to fix down here. Again, if you're just updating the existing service, I could resave this and then rebill it with no problems. If I'm adding brand new services, so let's say you're like, oh, wait a second, I needed to add, let's make this Bob's Cadillac. Let's add a tow. All right. And let's add mileage. All right, so now in this scenario, I've added two brand new services. So my en-route service has already been posted, but I just added a tow and mileage, which have not been posted. All right. Oops. Do a quick save. Okay. So if I would go back to, let's see, 6149. So if I would go back to this screen here and search for call 6149, let's do a filter of any time. It's going to show here, and these are my two new services that I just added as a -2 invoice. All right. If I do that, the tow and mileage is going to appear on page 2 of my invoice. My en-route miles is going to appear on page 1. Typically, you don't want that. You say, nope, that's actually all one invoice. I don't need it split like that. That's where we use this merge invoice button. So we say, okay, these are actually all part of our -1 invoice. All right. Let's assume that I don't care about this error. It's missing a PO. I already know what the problem is. So let's just say I don't need it on this one for whatever reason. So I'm going to override it and then save it. So now what that did, that pushed the tow, mileage, and in route onto one invoice. And then if I'm billing it, I can bill it out all together. Typically with the Motor Club billing, you can't bill pieces and parts. It doesn't work that way. Everything has to be part of the same invoice. All right. So that's where that merging button will come into play here. Now I also could have used on the call this create invoice / post job button. This would have taken me directly into that same posting screen for that call. So it's a shortcut. Instead of me setting the filter and going the long way through accounting, you could do it right from the call if you need to as well. So you got a couple different options there. All right. So I'm going to close that out. So that's pretty much your Motor Club billing and how that piece of it will work. All right. So we'll close that out. The next two options, the print invoices and print statements. Print invoices is if you need to send out batch invoices to your customers. So maybe you have this Bob's Cadillac account. They want invoices for all of February. So I do February 1st through the 28th. Right? Now I can send them the payment status. I can either send every single invoice. I can send paid ones only or unpaid ones. So if I choose all, hit run. There we go. Oh, so there's only one for last month. So I have one paid invoice. And then with this from here, I can either print it, I can email it from here, I can fax it from here, or if I need to save it as another or a different file format, I can do that as well. All right, from here. All right. Our statements, same thing. We can do this in batch or for an individual account. I can pick my division, the account types that I want to send out, the specific account. So let's pick BG Auto. I think BG Auto has calls here. There we go, BG Auto. Now I have two options here, invoice from and to. If I just select the to date, it's going to run everything that's outstanding or unpaid up through a certain date. So if I wanted everything that's open up through the end of February, I hit run report. That's going to give me every single invoice. So I got some coming back to 2011, 2014, etc. This is 6 pages long. All right. Let's say that this account only wants a statement for February only. I can do that with this. Run that again. See if there's anything in here. Yeah, there is. So I got one page with just a handful of invoices. As you can see, it excludes everything that's unpaid still. So you got to be careful with that if you're using that. This really doesn't get used too much for accounts, but if you have certain customers that really want a statement just for that month, you have the option to do that now in the new system. Right? This little checkbox at the bottom I want to talk about here in a second when we go into settings, but this says only accounts with statements as the billing method. The invoice said only accounts with invoice as the billing method. What that's used for, if I don't pick an account on either one of those, what's going to happen is it's only going to select the accounts that have statement as the billing method, or vice versa, the invoice as the billing method if I choose that. The thing that kind of now goes hand in hand with this, yes, you may need to send it out at the end of the month, or maybe you're doing it after each call, or after you're posting it now manually. We have a new feature that's going to allow you to send this stuff out automatically, and that you have to set up in your settings part. So I'm going to bring that up. Bring this over here. So here's our settings page here. All right, so in your accounts, and you have to be a company admin to do this, but in your accounts, let's go to this Bob's Cadillac account. You have a new tab in here now called Invoicing. Right? This is the first part I was talking about with the checkboxes. If your accounts are set to invoices only, and you try to run the batch statements, it will not be included. Vice versa, if it's a statement only account, I run batch invoices, this account will not be included. If it's both, it'll be included on both with that checkbox, or if it's none, then it won't run in batch. You can still run it as an individual account if you want to, it just doesn't run in batch if you decide to run your things that way. All right. Now down here, this allows us to select different invoice styles. We also have an option for different statement styles. I'll have a article in our help section here, hopefully this week or probably next week, with all the different styles on there, so you can see or compare how they look next to each other. So you can pick the one for the account that you want the best. Down here, this is where we can set up to automatically send invoices or statements. So we have the option to send it when it's finished. So as soon as that call's finished, whether it's by dispatch or by the driver, that will automatically go out, and you have the option to send it by an email or by a fax. All right. We could also send it when the job is created or posted. So maybe we don't want to send it out right away when it's finished because we want to have at least a chance to look over it and verify it before sending it. That's what this option is going to allow you to do. And again, we can send it by email or fax. Right. Invoice message is just going to be a generic message that would appear on every single invoice. So you have the option here. And you also have a new option down here, show photo URL on invoice. So what that's going to do is if you've taken pictures on a call and they're marked as public, there's going to be a link for the customer that they can click on it now and see all those pictures. All right. Signatures, anything else that you may have on that call, you have the option to include that now with your invoices. Over on the statement side, there's not too much here, but again, I can do statements. I can automatically send daily. If you wanted to send a daily statement, you can send a weekly statement. Monthly would be at the end of every month. Most likely you're going to want a custom date though. The custom date is going to send those statements automatically on a certain date. So let's just say, I'm going to say the 3rd. All right. So every month on the 3rd, any account that's set up to automatically send, or whatever the date is, will automatically send the statement for that account on the 3rd of every month. Right? If you do this, this assumes that all your calls have been posted up to the end of the month or whatever time frame that you need here. If the calls are not posted, they're not included on the statement. All right, so you got to make sure that you're caught up on your calls if you're going to do this automatic function. But then again, I can send it by email or I can send it by fax. Right? Now you may be asking, okay, well, if I send it by email or fax, what email or fax number am I sending it to? That's set up on this billing tab right behind it here. All right. So if we have their address here, this is the address that's going to appear on their invoices or statements. Right. The fax number or email address that we have here, this is what we're using for the automatic sending of invoices and or statements. All right. So as long as this is set up, this will go out correctly based on whatever criteria that you set up on the invoice tab. All right. So this is available right now if you wanted to start using it. It's working as planned. So if you have any questions or you need help setting this up at a later time, just give us a call. We can also help you with that. Right. So that's invoice and statement. So automatically doing it or setting it up to, doing it manually or automatically setting it up in settings. You can do that now. The enter payments and credit memos kind of go together. So let's look at that. So enter payment is after you've received a payment for a call. Let's look at Bob's Cadillac. All right. The filter for this is last month. I'm going to pick anytime. All right. So this is going to bring in every single open invoice that I have for this account. So when this thing loads here, there it goes. All right. So I have a little over $1 million worth of open invoices for Bob's Cadillac right now. So let's just say they sent me a check and it's for $10,000. There we go. All right. The receipt date is the day that I want that payment to be reflected in my system. So if it's today, I can mark it as such. If it was supposed to be done on the 5th, for example, I can backdate it here. I may or may not have received a check, but if I receive a check, it may have a different check date on it. So maybe the check date on this one was the 2nd. It's how the customer is paying. Now these, you could add to this if you wanted to. You can have different payment types. I'm just going to pick check for right now. You may have a reference number. Let's make something up. And then I can pick a deposit date. Now, it's either going to be open for whatever the last deposit date is. So in our case, our last deposit on this account or for this division was January 15th. It's never been closed. So I can either still continue to work off of that deposit, or I can start a new one and pick whatever day it's supposed to be. So maybe I make all my bank deposits every Friday. So this was supposed to be on the 16th. So I'm going to move that deposit date to the 16th. All right. So now I filled out all of my top information. I can now start going through and start paying off invoices. Let's say that $10,000 balance is going to go right to this call right here. All right, this large $896,000 call. I only have $10,000 to apply here. or basically it's not enough to cover what the balance is. So I'm going to get a warning here just letting us know that it's not the full amount for this invoice. All right, so we can always change it, or if my amounts were wrong or whatever's going on with it. In this case, it's just letting us know that I didn't pay off the full amount. If it's any of the other ones that's paying off the full amount, let's clear this out real quick. Let's say it's paying off this one. I can just click the little checkbox there, and then the full amount will be applied to that invoice. And then I can also type in exactly what they paid me on each individual invoice. And basically I'm going through and using whatever check that I've received. So far I've applied $1,651.90 shown down here. The amount to credit, basically the amount that I haven't used right now, is $8,348.10. So it gives you an idea how much of the check you have left as you're going through. Let's just say we're going to apply the rest of it here. All right. So now I've entered the payment. I've applied it to whatever invoices that they're paying off. Now I can save it at the top here. All right. So my $10,000 has been applied, and then I get green check marks next to the jobs that I've applied payments to. All right. This page will automatically refresh, and then I'm left with whatever the balances are. Or if it's paid off completely, it will disappear off this page. All right. The two other things that are on this page that you can possibly use, if they had an overpayment for whatever reason, we can apply the credit from that account. So this account has a bunch of different credits that were previously in here. Let's say I needed to use this credit memo, this one, and this one. All right. So I select those. I can also say out of those credit memos, maybe I only want to use 2,000 of this. I can also type that in if I wanted to. Hit OK. All right. So now I have, for my credit memos, an additional $8,267.28 to use from an overpayment at some point in the past. All right, so let's say I want this to reflect tomorrow. I'm going to use this as cash. Usually you'd have another payment method in here for this. I don't have a reference number. I want it on this deposit, and then I just go through and I want to apply it to this invoice. All right. So you'll notice I didn't put anything up here because I'm not receiving any additional money. I'm just using money from a credit. You may run into an issue where you want to use some of the credit and you're also applying a payment, and you could put something up here, but normally you don't put anything up here if you're using a credit because you're not taking in additional money. This is money that's already been taken in into your account. All right. So I'm going to apply this full amount, hit save, and it applies that additional credit, and it gets rid of it for that part of that account, or those four anyways that I wanted. All right. The last option that you have in here is to pay off $0 invoices. So customers coming over from DA2, you're used to our system automatically paying off $0 line items. It no longer does that. So unless you select it as you're applying a payment, those $0 invoices will stay in here. So what you could do is come in here and hit pay $0 invoices. So it shows that there's 27 invoices or line items that are at $0 that if we want to pay them off, we can. So I can hit yes or no, and it will pay them off and then clear them off of here automatically. So you now have the option to clear those out. So we had plenty of customers that liked it. We had a lot of customers that didn't like that. So you kind of have the option now whether you want to pay that off automatically or just do it as you apply your payments. All right. Now with the credits, actually let's go back into there. If I let's say a cash. Let's bring that back here. All right. Let's say I got through my check and I had money left over. So in this case, let's just say my check was for $250. I didn't have anything to apply it to for whatever reason, so I have an amount to credit of $250. When I save that, oops, I got to apply it to one. Sorry. Let's do 100 here. All right, let's do a save. All right. So this is asking now, close and create an account credit for $150. I didn't use all $250 of that payment. It's going to show in my system that I received $250, but I'm not using all of it yet. I'm only using, in this case, or this example, $100. So I'm going to hit yes. Payment amount of $250 applied. And then the credit's going to automatically be created in the system. I think he's doing some back-end work right now, but we'll be able to see that, or Oh, there it goes. Bring it back up here. It's going to be, it should be at the bottom here. Here's my 150. All right. So it was an overpayment from that check or whatever payment that it came from. All right. So that's using if you actually had an overpayment on a check that you've applied. Now, if you have to create one yourself, you can do it right here through the credit memo section. You tell it which account it's for. Let's say it's Bob's Cadillac. We can create a new one. All right, for Bob's Cadillac, let's say we want to issue this. Actually, let's do it today. We have one for 500, some sort of reference number, and I can also put a comment in here. Test credit memo. Okay. Again, it's going to appear at the bottom here. And now this $500 I can use later on that account. Normally, if you're creating a credit memo, it's typically for some sort of write-off situation. You have unpaid balances or you have a certain amount that you need to get rid of in your system. Typically, you're creating a credit memo and using a payment type of some sort of like write-off or bad debt, something along those lines to get rid of those small old balances, especially if you're doing any work with motor clubs. Typically, you got to write that stuff off. Now, you may have times where either the overpayment was a mistake or they truly overpaid you and you're actually going to send them the money back via check. So you'll process your checks if you're going to send them a refund on your own. In our system, though, you can select however many ones you're going to send back. Usually it's like one or two. Let's say we're sending them a check for whatever the total of these 4 credit memos are. We could issue refund, in this case $390.55. Check date, let's say it's going to go out tomorrow. Check number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right, and hit OK. What that does in our system, it simulates you actually physically mailing out a check to this company for the $390. The steps that we just took, all that did was it gets rid of them in our system. So if we have old credits that we need to get rid of, again, they're there by mistake, or we actually cut the company a check for the certain amount, you want to go in here and get rid of the additional money so it doesn't show that this account has a balance, an additional credit balance on there. So those are the credit memos. Below that, this is just a report or a link to a report. So it's just an AR summary. Let's just run it through today. So this is just going to give you an idea of which accounts have open balances. So again, this is our test database. We have all these accounts with our receivables. This will show any accounts that have a credit or credits on them. And then what the balance is. So basically receivables minus credits gives you your balance. And it does a subtotal at the bottom here. Right? Just so you have an idea. Now, that one's great just to see a total amount. Maybe you want to see accounts that are 30, 60, or 90 days past due. All right. You can go into your accounting reports then. That same receivables report is right here, but you can get to it for an aging report. Let's run it through today. This one's going to be a little bit different. It's still going to give you the same type of information, but this is now going to show you which accounts are 30 days with a 30-day balance, 30 to 60, 60 to 90, 90 and over. Again, what your credits are and then what your balances are. So again, this number is going to be the same, but this just gives you an idea which accounts are current, which are getting to that maybe that threshold, and then maybe these accounts that maybe we need to get on top of and say, hey, you guys have owed us money for a while. Why is this still unpaid? All right. But again, it does a total at the bottom. This just totals up each column for you and then gives you a grand total of outstanding revenue. All right. The commission side of it, or the payment part of it, we have our calculate commissions and our summary report. So we're going to go into commissions here. Now, clicking on this is assuming that all of your commission has been set up on the back end already. So if you do after hours commissions, or you pay a certain amount per call, or it's a certain percentage per service, looking at this, I'm assuming that that's already been set up. If you need help setting that information up, though, give us a call. We can walk you through. That's typically a training session in itself, how to do that. But we would normally set our date range here. I'm just going to use this month to bring some examples in. But you'd set your date range for whatever your commission period is. And this is going to break out each driver for us. So we can see Brian has 5 calls here. Just like our posting screen, I can open these up to see what we're paying commission on. So in this case, this is a tow. Apparently on this call, Brian gets 12%, so he's going to get paid $12, right? This call was a jump start for a penny. He gets 50% of that, so it ends up being a penny with the rounding. And again, 50%, so on and so forth. So you might look at this one and say, well, why does that say 49%? Well, if we look at it, we can say, okay, looks like he gets paid on the mileage. He gets paid on the in route, and then on tows, apparently he gets 16% on this one. So the total amount, the average isn't 50% anymore. It's 49.27 is the average. What we can also do on this screen is maybe I was going to pay the driver more on this one. We look at this, but wait a second, that's not, why is that 12%? You know, there must be something wrong in my settings. I don't want to fix it right now. Let me just do this so I can get commissions done. He's supposed to get paid 50% on that. I can type in whatever dollar amount that I want here. I could also say, well, it was actually supposed to be 15%. So if I type in 15%, it will change to the right percentage here. Actually, it's hard to see. Let's do it on this one. There it goes. So it changed it to the right amount. In this case, $6 is 15% of 40. So it's not blatantly apparent that you can type in a percentage in this box, but you can, and it will change it to the correct dollar amount for you if you're doing commission. If for whatever reason we need to take a look back at the call, we can always open this invoice. And if we need to edit the job, we can do that and update anything in here if we need to. And we go through each driver, double checking what they're getting paid. And then let's assume these are correct for Brian. We're going to save and pay. Let's say our pay date is tomorrow. Okay. All right. So next time I set that filter, those jobs are going to disappear because I've already paid them. And if I look at this is one report. We'll look at this one, the summary report. This, you're going to choose whatever your pay date was. In our case, it was the 16th. Oops, sorry, March 16th. All right. Hit run. All right, so here's Brian's report. So these are the jobs. The reason this is a summary, because this is going to show, if you wanted to hand this to a driver, the calls, all the calls that they did, only what they made on the call, not what you made on the call. So if I was going by this and assuming this was all correct, I would owe Brian $1,748.56 for this commission period. All right. Now, if you wanted to run a more detailed report, maybe you want to see what the driver brought in total versus what you're paying out. That's when you go into the reports and these accounting reports and you run a commission detail report. So let's run it for the same day. Let's do the 16th through the 16th. All right, so now I have Brian's calls, and this looks very similar to the screen that we were looking at before. This breaks down each service. So now I can see what the amount was for that service, what we paid in commission, and what the percentage is. So comparing this, now I can see, okay, Brian in total for this commission period brought in $3,646.11, and I paid out $1,700 in commission. So that allows you to see what the drivers are bringing in versus what you're paying out. Typically, these types of reports are internal. The driver normally doesn't see this report. All right. That's why we made those summary reports. Normally, the driver gets the summary report. This also does all the correct page breaks for you. So let's say Brian went through a page and a half. On that half page, it's going to do a page break, and the new page will start your new driver. So we have a lot of companies that will just print this thing out, and then they'll hand, for the commission period, they'll hand each driver their pages, whatever it is, and then they don't have to worry about like writing it down. The system does it automatically. Now, the reason this has date ranges on it, like I just said before, when you're running it for a commission pay date, you run it for that single day. The reason this has a date range that you can run is because some companies like to see how much they paid in commission for the full year, or maybe they want to see what it is for the full month or quarter, whatever it is. This allows you to encompass multiple pay dates in one report. But the big thing to remember on the commission reports, if you're running it, it's going to be for the pay date, not the pay week. If you run it for the pay week, it's possible that you could use or run across two separate pay dates, in which case you're going to double pay the driver. So just be careful on that when you're running your commission reports. All right. The last options here, the payment history and the deposit information. The payment history is nice. So if I click this, this is going to be all the payments that I've done in the system this month. But again, I can change my filter to a certain account maybe or whatever. So this is going to show me all the payments I've taken. Maybe we need to find one because I need to see, okay, from this, let's find a big one here. Let's try this one. This $493 payment, I need to see if it was applied to multiple invoices or just one. Well, I can see that from here now. So if I do print receipt, I can see that this payment was applied to 8551 and actually it was applied to the same invoice. This part where it has P dash and this one has a -1 on it. The P dash means that this call hasn't been posted yet. Or this service, I should say, the storage service hasn't been posted, but the tow and the mileage has. That's why it has a full invoice number now, right? So if you ever bring up an invoice and it has a P dash, that just means it's a preview. It just hasn't been posted yet, right? I could also look at the invoices. Right? In this case, this is one single invoice that it was applied to. You may have 2, 3, 4, 5 invoices that this check, you know, if it was a multiple check for multiple invoices, you may see all the invoices that that payment was applied to. And then right from over here, we can undo the payment and reverse it, right? So undo payment for the selected receipt. And then if you have credit card processing, and assuming this was a credit card payment, we could issue that refund back to the customer's card if we wanted to. So there may or may not be reasons that you do or don't want to put that money back on the card. In our system, it's the full amount. So if this was a credit card payment and I click that, it would apply or reverse the entire payment to the credit card. Maybe we only needed to refund a partial amount. I would uncheck this, fix my call, and then issue the refund through the credit card processing versus through the system, because that will allow you to do partial refunds. Right? So we click undo, one receipt backed out. So now that invoice that we had is open again. So no payments were applied to it. Right? So this will help you find your receipts or back them out if you need to. Now, if we... Let's find one here. What? 8563. Okay. 8563. Let's say you're on the call, and this is assuming you're an admin. You have the payment security level. You look at this and you're like, oh wait, there's a payment already applied to it. How much was applied to it? So these locks indicate that a payment was applied to it. You do have a shortcut under the More dropdown to view payments and receipts. All right, that's going to take you back into that same screen that we were just looking at for that one call only. All right, so it's a little bit of a shortcut, and then if I need to, again, I can reverse it from here. I can bring up the receipt if I need to, or I can view the invoices that payment was applied to. The big thing to remember in this step is if this payment was applied to multiple invoices and you reverse it, you're reversing payment on every single invoice. All right, so if it was 3, 4, 5 invoices, you're going to need to go back and reapply that payment to all of those invoices at once. Right. And then these open deposits or printed deposit ticket, this is assuming from the enter payment that we're using the deposit dates. Again, there's some companies that use it. There's not a lot that use it. So if you're using it for the correct dates, you should be able to print an open deposit or a deposit ticket for that date range. Let's just do the last closed one here. I don't know what's going to be on it. Oh, here we go. So we didn't put any reference numbers on any of this, but this was dated, so 3/22. And then we have some more here. It must be, yeah, all these are super old here. So it gives you an idea of what the deposit and what was on that deposit if you need to print that. You could do open ones as well. So this is the one, we got one from September that's still open. One from May that's still open. Oops. And this button here, if you're using your deposits, you could close it from the enter payment. Anytime you start a new deposit, it automatically closes the previous one. I could close the deposits here as well if I wanted to. And that closes it. So the next time I take a payment, it's going to start a brand new deposit. All right. So we have some customers that open up a deposit at the beginning of the week. We have customers that open it up every single time they do a payment. We have some customers that ignore it completely. It's really personal preference. Most of our customers, I would say, is they're probably using the receipt date versus the deposit date. The receipt date is the day that your payment's going to be reflected in the system. It's easier to control. That's why people like to use that, because then they can run, again, it's an accounting report, a daily receipt report. Let's run it through the first through today, and let's show date and payment type. So if I run something like this is going to be a breakdown of each day. So on the first, we took 2 cash payments for $175. On the 5th, I took 4 check payments for $10,000. On the 6th, 303, etc. So this would break down each payment type per day. A lot of people like that better because they can see how much money they brought in per day versus the deposit, which really should be how much money you're taking to the bank. So you can use either. The system is capable of doing both. We just have more customers that probably use that receipt versus the deposit. All right. So that pretty much wraps up the accounting side of the software here. Do we have any questions on anything that we covered today, or does anybody have any questions just in general of anything that they want me to look over or touch base on really quick while we have the time today? And again, the chat box should be to the right if it's up there. Actually, while we wait for if there's any questions, I'll show you this real quick. One thing I forgot to mention with commissions. You may have times where you have to split commissions on a call. All right. Let's take a quick call here. I'm going to take a active one. All right, I'm going to take this one. All right, so Nick is assigned to this call right now. Maybe I'm also going to be assigned to this call. So let's go. Actually, let's just put Dan on it. All right, we're going to throw Dan on this call. All right, so I now have 2 drivers on the same call indicated by this. All right, this call gets finished out. Let's assume it's done. All right, so that call's finished out as of today. If we would go to my posting screen, we're going to see that call. Anytime you have multiple drivers on the same call, it will have a warning on it, letting you know that, hey, there's a potential problem. If I open this, it will tell me potential invalid job services, so there is still a problem, but there's additional drivers assigned to this job. Please review. Anytime there's additional drivers, we're going to flag it as a potential problem because there may be within that situation where you need to split commissions between multiple drivers. So if we go ahead and open this up, we're going to fix it. So step 1, let's fix our mileage. And let's fix our in route. All right, so that fixed that. So if I didn't touch this call and I look at dispatch, in this case, Nick was the driver. If I didn't touch this call, Nick would get commission for the entire thing. Right? Let's say Nick was supposed to get commission for the tow and mileage, but Dan, because he was a second driver, was going to get commission for the in route or whatever the service is. We can click on this pencil, click on the commission tab here. If this is blank, it goes back again to the driver who did the call, but I can say specifically for this service, Dan is going to get commission for it. Now, if I put a dollar amount here, I can put specifically what he's going to get paid on it. If I leave it blank, it's going to use whatever his commission structure says. So if it's a certain percentage or a certain dollar amount, whatever it is, it will use that. Paid on, I don't have to put anything in here. I could if I said that Dan was going to get paid $60 and the pay date for this one should have been tomorrow. I can do that. If I put all that stuff in manually, it will never show on my commission screen. So this is just kind of bypassing what we just looked at and doing it manually. But if I leave both of these blank, oops, okay, I'm going to get an indicator here that this specific line item is being paid to somebody else. All right, so we're going to save it. I'm going to post it. I'm going to have to override that. So 8579, save invoice. Go to my commissions. Job number 8579. Now I can see that that call is split between Nick and Dan. Again, Dan getting paid on the in-route miles, Nick getting paid on the tow and the mileage. So looking at this, it looks like Nick's commission's already set up at 25%. Dan must not have commission set up either on the in-route miles, or Dan's commission might not be set up at all, to be honest with you. So I could say, okay, he was supposed to get 25%. All right, so it changes it to 492. Save and pay, and then let's say it's tomorrow. And that gets dropped on then that commission report for the 16th. Right. So that's how you would want to split commissions if you need to do that on a single call. The second driver technically didn't need to be assigned to that call. If we did, though, both drivers would have got it on their driver app, which is nice. But you could split commissions on any single call that you want to, just by clicking that pencil and selecting a different driver for that service. So that's a possibility too. You don't, like I said, you don't have to have multiple drivers on the call, but you will get that indicator that that service line item is getting paid to somebody else. All right. Save that, close that. All right, so that pretty much covers everything now with the accounting side of our software. Do we have any questions on anything that we looked at today? You know, there's a little bit of a delay on the stream sometimes, usually about 5-10 seconds. So we'll wait to see if anybody has any questions on anything. And if you can't think of anything right now, but you start getting into it if you haven't played with it already, if you get stuck, if you're spending more than a couple minutes on anything, give us a call. That's why we have our support team, or you can shoot me a message. I'll go ahead and put my email address in the chat here. I'll also put our support number. So if you have any questions or you get stuck, if you want to email me or if you want to just give us a call, we can help you with any of that. We're also going to be at, if anybody is going to the Florida show this year, we will be at the Florida show. We'll obviously have our booth. Saturday, I'm going to be doing another live seminar. That I'll probably be covering pretty much everything from start to finish. So accounting again, I'll cover the dispatching side. I'll cover the impound, probably a little bit more detail on the reports as well. After that, usually that would probably take up about an hour or two of the entire day. The rest of it's going to be an open forum. So if there's people coming to the show and they just want to stop in and ask questions, I'll be in the room all day long. I believe if you're there, it's going to be the poinsettia room. So if you want to stop up, we'll also be at the show. So, but again, if any questions come up later on, give us a call or come see us at the show or email me. Usually I check my email most of the time after hours. So if something comes up and it's past 5 or 6 o'clock Eastern, just shoot me a message. Most of the time you're going to get a message back or a reply letting you know what's going on, or if I can handle it at home, I can. If not, then I might have to wait till the next day. But again, thanks everybody for watching today. We'll be doing more of these YouTube trainings here probably maybe either next week or the week after. Probably, I was thinking every other week we might start doing these. But if any questions come up before that, or if you want to schedule some more training time, or you have other people that maybe they couldn't be here for the live training, or they can't watch the recording and they do better with one-on-one training, let us know. We can get you on the training schedule. With that, I appreciate it again everybody for showing up today, and we will talk to you later. Have a good day. Thanks.